Hey everybody, this is Mad Matt Carter. Thank you so much for watching the AIWF Network YouTube channel as well as the AIWF Ringside Wrestling channel. If you like what you see, please do us a big favor. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that bell to get notifications every time we post new videos on both our channels. It means a lot to us, and thanks a lot for watching once again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro podcast. How are we this evening? My name is, as per usual, Bobby effing Salazar, and with me on the line is the current reigning and defending in two different companies, the Imperial Pro Wrestling Women's Champion and the Allied Independent Wrestling Federations, the AIWF Women's World Champion, as seen in AEW, AWF Mid-Atlantic, Imperial Pro Wrestling, as well as multiple other companies. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Clara Carter. Clara, how are we doing? I'm
good. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, thanks. Yeah. So I just want to start off by saying a massive thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to take the time to do this podcast this evening. So, sort of like introduce yourself to the audience, because I would assume that you know yourself better than obviously the audience.
Yeah.
Where did you first discover pro wrestling? Like, was it something that you grew up watching, or was it something that you just got in just like randomly, like out the blue, and here you are today?
So I have two brothers, and I'm right in the middle. So they overruled me on everything growing up. And my older brother started watching when I was like 4. So whenever we were all watching the TV, it had to be wrestling. And I was just hooked, and they grew out of it, and I never did. So when I graduated high school, I was like, let's give this wrestling thing a try, because I didn't really want to go to college. So here we are now.
Yeah. So when was it that you actually first got started with wrestling then, and like whereabouts was it that you first started training?
I was 19 when I started training, and I'm 22 now, so that was 3 years ago. And I started training in Knoxville, Tennessee with Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I did 3 months with him, and once I got done over there, I moved back to North Carolina because that's where my family was. So then when I got back here, I started training at AML with the Beer City Bruiser, and that's where I am right now.
Fair enough, yeah. The Beer City Bruiser, he's ex Ring of Honor, isn't he?
Yes.
As far as I know. And yeah, so do you remember your first training sessions that you had then? Yeah, were there any nerves for yourself going into them?
I was nervous because I already knew who Dr. Tom was. Like, he was the first head trainer for WWE, and I've heard all the horror stories they had of how he would blow them up and just murder them. So I was terrified going in, and it was 5 days a week for 4 hours a day, and he would just blow us up and really test us and see if we wanted it. So it was crazy.
Yeah. So sort of when how long into you actually trained was it that you had your first debut match then?
I got very lucky. I was only training for a little over a month. There was an independent show in Tennessee that really needed a woman, and they reached out to Dr. Tom, and he threw my name in. So it was I want to say 7 weeks maybe after I first started training. And I was so nervous. I did not feel ready at all. But Dr. Tom really guided me through it and really held my hand and made sure I was as prepared as I could be.
Yeah. So with Dr. Tom then, do you still train with him today then, or is that something that's in the past currently?
I still talk to him every day. I still get advice from him every day. I send my matches to him and stuff like that. I try to go there every few months just to say hey to him and hang out with him, because him and Bruiser train very similarly, but also completely different. So it's good. I like to get both of them every few months. I like to go back to Dr. Tom because I miss them.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. So since your debut match, like to today, sort of talk us through some of the bits and pieces that you've done. You know, because you've recently worked for AEW. You're the Imperial Pro Women's Champion. You're the current AIWF Women's World Champion. Sort of talk us through like some like other bits and pieces that you've done. You know, sort of, like from when you started to today.
About 2 years ago, I did the Crockett Cup for NWA also, which was really cool. Just having Dr. Tom and the Beer City Bruiser on my resume it opens so many doors just because they're both so well known and so well respected in wrestling. So I've gotten to do a lot of cool stuff, whether it be NWA or AEW or even wrestling for Imperial and getting to, like, I wrestled Zaya Brookside this past weekend, so
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah, Zaya. Her dad, Robbie Brookside, is a very well-respected legend over here, and British wrestling legend. So, speaking of Zaya Brookside, like you were defending the IPW women's title against her, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, did you know of Zaya beforehand, or like was this like your first encounter?
I'm a huge student of the game, and I just watch wrestling all the time. So I knew very well who her father is, and I love Japanese wrestling also. So I've seen her stuff in Stardom, and I've seen her on NXT UK and stuff. So it was really, really cool. I was really excited when I found out I was wrestling her.
Yeah. So speaking of like some other stuff, that you've done, about 2 months ago or like thereabouts. You wrestled in a 2-on-1 handicap match with, I think it was like you were teaming with Jasmine Howe, I think that's her name, taking on former NWA Women's Champion of Camille. So talk us through like how the opportunity for AEW came about.
So it was in Winston-Salem, and AML Wrestling kind of runs the North Carolina wrestling scene. So AEW reached out to Brian Hawks. And he threw my name in case they needed any extra wrestlers or whatever. And I was lucky enough that they reached out to me. And I was lucky enough to get a match. I didn't know till I got there. So that was really, really cool. And it was just I got to learn from Christopher Daniels, who I grew up watching. So it was like such a surreal moment. And it was like one of the coolest things ever.
I can't lie, but I think Christopher Daniels is someone who has literally been there, done that. You know, he's a Ring of Honor legend. Do you know what I mean? You know, he's a TNA legend as well. You know, and what have you? Do you know what I mean? So I think that Christopher Daniels is definitely someone who would be someone to learn from. Do you know what I mean? And So with the AIWF as well, how did the opportunity to become the AIWF Women's World Champion come about?
Honestly, I think that they just saw how hard that I work, and they decided to really give me an opportunity. AIWF and Rick Diesel really have given me such a big opportunity to really wrestle just about every weekend when I was first starting. And they really believed in me, and they really gave me a platform to just have so much creative freedom. And I really think Rick Diesel is one of the most underrated minds in wrestling, because that man just comes up with the craziest ideas. And they somehow always work, and they're always entertaining. So I'm very thankful for Rick Diesel and AIWF.
Well, like the AIWF, they're obviously, like, it started with the I believe it was Mid-Atlantic back in '92, and then they've literally grown into the international alliance that they are today. Over 150 companies in 40 some odd countries. Do you know what I mean? You know, like, I think that like Rick Diesel was on here back on Thursday, I want to say, And I've had Matt Classic on before, and like I speak to Matt most days, and like I think as a duo, they do wonders for the business and like do wonders for various different people, and they send wrestlers like abroad to wrestle and whatever's to defend titles. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
with the AIWF Women's title, like, would that be something that you'd want to take abroad somewhere?
Oh yeah, I would love to. I've got my passport ready to go, so whenever someone reaches out, I'm ready.
So, if a promoter would be watching this podcast and if they would like to book you on a show, like, what would be the best sort of option for said promoter to be able to book you?
On my email, it is at bookclarawrestling@gmail.com. So just send me an email there or reach out on Facebook or Instagram. Just shoot me a message wherever you see me on social media, and I should respond. Usually within a
day. So, what sort of bits and pieces have you actually got coming up then? Like in terms of matches and shows?
I've got this Friday, I have ASW in West Virginia that I'm debuting for. Saturday, we have AML Wrestling here in North Carolina. We're doing a double show. The first show starts at 3, and then the second show starts at 7. So that's going to be a busy day. And then on Sunday, I'm at PWF, also here in North Carolina.
Fair enough, yeah. Yeah, so... Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so... is there anywhere or anyone that like you would like to sort of go, anyone that you'd like to step in the ring with that you haven't done so far?
Kenzie Page also is a Dr. Tom girl, and we've done tag matches and everything, but we've never had a one-on-one match, and I would love to have that one-on-one match. I would also love to wrestle Thunder Rosa, because I know a lot of people that have wrestled her, and I would love to be in the ring with her. And then Savannah Evans, she's a local North Carolina girl who's on TNA now. Her and every girl in North Carolina has wrestled Savannah Evans except for me. And I don't know why. But I would love to have that happen too. We were supposed to wrestle like literally maybe 5 times, and it was always an outdoor show, and it always got rained out. So
got it. So, like, you were saying earlier that you grew up as a fan of wrestling, and I think that I can tell by the background that you're definitely, like, somewhat of a fan of wrestling. I assume you have a collection of bits and pieces, like, for wrestling?
So, this wall, my husband and I collect every match card graphic that we're on, and we hang them up on our wall. We just think it's something cool to like show our kids when we have kids and everything. And then my husband loves to collect wrestling Funko Pops. So
right, yeah.
He has got maybe over 200. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. I'm running out of room. And I can't make the apartment cute like I want to because I have to display all his Funko Pops. So
that is dedication. 200 Funko Pops. Jeez.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, are you personally much of a collector, or is it like mainly your husband? Because I know that your husband's also a wrestler as well, isn't he?
Yes, he is a wrestler. I don't know whose idea it was to collect Funko Pops, but I think that we just saw a cool one day, and then he just kept buying more and more and more and more. And he's in Japan right now, and he's like, listen, you gotta be the one hustling for these Funko Pops while I'm gone. And I'm like, buddy, don't worry. Don't worry.
Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie, legendary Boogie Woogie. Wait a minute, baby. Wait a minute. Hang on. What are you doing around? What was that going there, brother?
This is our neighborhood.
You done made a mistake.
You should be retired, Boogie.
Wait a minute, boys. Let me take a bite of my king dog.
You say king dog?
King dog?
Is that what you said?
What? What happened? Come on, boy.
Don't let hunger bully you. Get yourself a king dog and you too can become a super hunger fighter.
Secondhand Heroes and Home for Wayward Villains is a comic book shop and gaming store that also features Magic the Gathering and D&D. Located at 18184 Leesville Road in Evington, Virginia, Secondhand Heroes is your one-stop shop for you to get your nerd on. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. They don't close until the dice stop rolling. They buy, sell, trade, barter, and haggle, specializing in collectible toys, both vintage and modern, comics, Magic the Gathering, video games, console, and arcade cabinets to play, all set to free play. Host your game night with us, Monday night D&D video game competitions, and so much more. Something for the collector and gamer in us all. Call 434-317-0121 or shoot us an email with any questions to secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. Note, secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. That's 2ND, handheroesva@gmail.com. Come game with us.
So, growing up, watching wrestling like yourself, would you say that you had any particular favorite superstar growing up?
It was always Jeff Hardy and Shawn Michaels. Those two were my favorites. I would stay up in the summertime. My mom would get so mad at me because I would stay up until like 6 a.m. watching wrestling. And she's like, Claire, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so obviously Shawn Michaels is long retired now, but like Jeff Hardy is currently in TNA. Mm-hmm. So if the opportunity ever arose for you to share a locker room with Jeff and etc., what would that mean for you to get to meet like an idol of yours?
I actually was blessed enough to get that opportunity last month, which was like, it came out of nowhere. So AML runs WrestleCade, and Jeff Hardy was at WrestleCade last year. And I was able to meet him last year, just a quick like, hi, how are you? You know, we were in the same locker room at WrestleCade. But it's so chaotic that we didn't really get to talk much. And then he was at AML last month, and Brian and Tracy are the greatest people I've ever worked for in my life. They are amazing. And I'm the only girl at AML. And I really want to like wrestle on the main roster, and they couldn't find another girl. So they were like, okay, we're just going to throw you in a scramble match with all the guys. And which is like a crazy big opportunity that they did not have to give me. And I still don't know why they were kind enough to do that for me. But Jeff Hardy happened to be in that scramble match too. So.
Oh, wow.
I was like in the ring. You can watch this all on Title Match Network also. I was in the ring, and I remember just looking at him, and I'm like, holy crap, that's Jeff Hardy. And then I had to like quickly snap back in. I'm like, I'm wrestling. I can't think about that right now. But my mom came to that show too, only because she wanted to meet Jeff Hardy. She didn't care that I was wrestling. She just wanted to meet Jeff Hardy. So.
Oh, jeez, yeah. So, with WrestleCade, like personally, I've heard of WrestleCade, but I thought that WrestleCade was its own separate like company, like from everything. Like I didn't realize that it was a wrestling company that organized it.
It's its own separate thing. Like WrestleCade, it's its own big beast of a weekend, and AML runs every month. And then at the end of November, they put together WrestleCade. So it's like their sister company, basically.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So, like, with AML, like, are you there like every month for shows or?
I was whenever they want a women's match, I'm always there. Last month was kind of a once in a lifetime thing, I think, where they let me get in there with the guys. So yeah, like I said, Brian and Tracy, they are just the biggest blessings, I think, in wrestling here on the East Coast in America, because their minds for wrestling are amazing, and they're so giving, and they're like the kindest people I've ever met. And I've gotten so many cool opportunities from Brian and Tracy, and they keep the AML training center open, and I cannot thank both of them enough for everything that they've done for me and my husband in our career.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's good like when you tend to like build like friendships with like your trainers. Do you know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
like rather than you just turning up, you know, with them just like taking your money like to train and like what have you, and they like you're not speaking to each other like at all. Do you know what I mean? You
Right.
know, and yeah. So, but yeah. So, where would you like to see your career get to in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I'll be 27. The goal has always been WWE for me. My husband's goal was Japan. I would love to wrestle in Japan too, but for me, my biggest goal has always been WWE. So it'd be really cool to be able to go there, get to work with Shawn Michaels, because I think that the best women in wrestling are in WWE.
Yeah.
That's just what I think. So it would be amazing to be able to go over there and see what I can do. And yeah, I would love to go to Japan. I would love to go to Mexico. I would love to go to England too. My family is from Brazil, so I know that there's a few independent wrestling shows over there. So I would love to go over there too, just to get experience and see what the wrestling world is like in other countries.
Yeah. Like in WWE, you know, you've got Rhea Ripley, you've got Bianca Belair, you've got Jade Cargill. Like I think, you know, like those, you know, like Becky Lynch, you know, etc. You know, who literally take the women's division up by storm. Do you know what I mean? You know, and have put it on on the map. Do you know what I mean? You know, and yeah. So, but have you got any particular opponent that you would like you mentioned, like Thunder Rosa, etc. Have you got any particular opponent in WWE that you like to face?
I would love to wrestle Rhea Ripley, just because she's so big and strong, and I want to get as big and strong as her one day, and I really think that her and I could have just a bad bitch match, basically. So I would love to wrestle.
Yeah. So when you were first like starting out, did you have any sort of expectations of like what you wanted to do with yourself, like when it comes to wrestling, or was it just like a go with the flow sort of situation, and then like see like where everything takes you?
Well, to me, it's always been wrestling or nothing. Like I have stuff outside of wrestling that I want to do later on in my life, but for me, it was always wrestling. And I grew up competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and my mom really wanted me to like go in that field because she was like, you're good at it, you can see the world, you can, you know, win medals and stuff like that. But for me, every time I was at Jiu-Jitsu, I was thinking about wrestling. And whenever I was watching wrestling, I was not thinking about jiu-jitsu. So I was like, let me go on this wrestling route. And it's really like all or nothing for me. So I'm really just 100% focused on this and seeing where it takes me. And it's taken me already to some pretty cool places. So I'm very excited to see where else I get to go.
So what sort of advice could you give to someone who would potentially be listening to this podcast for like a newbie who's probably only been in training for a couple of weeks, or someone who's thinking about getting into training, like to get into wrestling? What sort of advice could you give to someone who would like to get into like the world of pro wrestling?
I would say train as much as you can. Because like I said, when we were at Dr. Tom, it was 5 days a week, 4 hours a day of just grinding and sweating and bleeding and crying. And it's rough, but the harder you train, the better you will be. And in jiu-jitsu, my coach always told me, because I'm 5'5", 145 pounds. Like, I'm kind of a small girl. And I would get discouraged a lot because there was a lot of guys in jiu-jitsu, and I would just get beat up all the time. And my coach told me, he said, it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, how fast you are. If you're not putting the time in on the mat, then you'll never get anywhere. And that really like stuck with me. So I try to be in a ring as much as I can, and muscle memory will start kicking in. And I think they say it takes like 10,000 hours to master something. So ring time is really, really, really important. Like, it sucks and you'll get blown up and sweaty and hurt and broken, but your wrestling is very, very important.
So in terms of, sort of routines and whatever, like when you first start training, like, what would you say is like the most important training steps that someone should take, or a trainer should be teaching to the new generation?
I think it's very important to be trained by a reputable trainer, and to be trained by somebody that's been where you want to be. So just find somebody that knows what they're doing, and find somebody that will be honest with you, because I've noticed that, especially in women's wrestling, if you ask for critique, a lot of guys will be like, oh yeah, it was good, and then just brush you off because they don't want to hurt your feelings, and they don't know how the girl is going to accept the critique or whatever. So I think it's very, very important to find a trainer that will be brutally honest with you, because that's the only way like you will actually get better, is if he like they'll say nice things, but they'll be like, you really need that honesty.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if the opportunity ever arose for yourself to train, like the future generation, or even promote your own shows, would that ever be like an option, do you think?
Oh yeah, I would love to. Even now, I love helping the newer trainees that come in. So I would definitely, my husband and I have actually talked about that. Like, when we're old and gray and ready to retire, I think we do want to open a school and help people, and see how we can train people, because I'm always curious, like, how good of a trainer I would actually be.
Yeah. So, or like maybe be like the next like Dr. Tom, or the
Beer City Bruiser.
Oh, I can't think of the guy's name now.
Yeah.
The Beer City Bruiser. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a comment. Here we are. So, official Christopher Jackson. Hang on. What the fuck? I mean, what's up, sweet? Right, that's a scam comment, I think. Right, no, let me get rid of that. Delete. Sorry about that. Yeah, something about a full body massage or something. But yeah. So I've just deleted the comment. So yeah. What was I saying? So yeah. Also, like, when it comes to promoting shows, like, would you ever like promote your own shows?
I don't know, because I see how stressful it is for other promoters, and I'm like, I don't know if I have the patience to deal with that many people. So we'll see where my patience levels are at when I'm a full, like, grown adult, because I think I'm still a baby adult. So when I'm like a full grown adult and know what I'm doing, we'll see where my patience is at. And then I guess it'll be like a decision for later in my life. But right now, I don't think I have the patience for it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So, but yeah, so for anyone listening to this podcast, like, where can people find you on social media, and like, where can people sort of find like what you've got coming up?
I'm mainly active on Instagram. I do have a Twitter, but I don't use it. People just tag me and stuff on there. But it is at Clara Wrestling on all my social media. My Facebook is really for business and family. So fans, please don't hit me up on there. But Instagram is really the best place you can find me because I try to post there as often as I can. So.
Yeah. So, Clara, I would just like to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Nerdic Pro podcast this evening. Have you got anything else to add onto the podcast today?
No, just check out AML Wrestling and check out Imperial Pro Wrestling, because they're really looking to hit the ground running hard for the rest of this year. Those are both on Title Match Network, and then AIWF, obviously, they're worldwide, so.
Yeah. So, Clara, I must say, it's been a pleasure having you on the Nerdic Pro podcast this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, like, it's been a pleasure. So I'm going to end the stream in just a second, and then we'll go back into the lobby thing that we were in just a second ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro podcast, my name has, as per usual, been Bobby effing Salistar, and with me on the line this evening has been the Imperial Pro Wrestling Women's Champion, the Allied Independent Wrestling Federation's Women's World Champion, the one and only Miss Clara Carter. Clara, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we shall be seeing you all later. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much to those of you who've been watching live. And thank you all very much to those of you that will be watching on the replays. My name is, as per usual, been Bobby Effin Salistar. With me on the line has been Clara Carter. Thank you all very much, and goodbye.